I am Timoni West. I'm the GM of Industry at Unity Technologies. How many of you have actually heard of Unity before? Okay, wow, that's actually more than I expected. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, which was maybe 2/3 of the room, Unity is a set of software and a platform that has a history in games. But really what we're going to talk about today is how we're using that real-time 3D technology to enable new classes of interaction and interactivity, all of that kind of falls under this umbrella of what we call the metaverse. Now, before we get started talking about the metaverse, though, I just wanted to throw this up here. This is a great example of the types of customers and clients and partners that we're working with today. So for example, we are working with Mercedes-Benz on their HMI. We're working with YVR on their digital twin of their airport. And if you are in Orlando or going there before or after this conference, you can actually see our Orlando digital twin at the main office. Okay, I have to admit, I don't really like the word metaverse. It's unclear. It is called a bunch of different things. Actually, one more show of hands. How many of you feel like you have a good sense of what the metaverse is? Okay, all right. Actually, I would love to have you come on stage and explain it to the crowd. I'm just kidding. But actually, if you want to talk about it after this, that would be awesome. It is certainly something that's talked about a lot, and often with large numbers attached. But I still think that it represents sort of a change in how computers work, what they can do, and what people expect out of the digital, much more than any sort of crystal definition on its own. Here's an example of how people are talking about it. It kind of overlaps, but it often varies. So for example, on the top, that's I believe, a 33-minute read on Medium. We only have 20 minutes, so I'll just talk a little bit about what it says. But for example, we're talking about it being, digital experience on top of the physical world. I think this is a good one. This relates to sensor information, AI, real-time information being embedded in the apps that we use every day. An audiovisual experience, sure. A piano bar, that's an interesting one. I have never thought about the metaverse and the piano bar in the same sentence before I saw this on the slide. And then a 3D space with digital avatars, which I think is what most people generally think of when they think about the metaverse. The Ready Player One was just put on a headset. And that one I think is, while really cool, I actually led our augmented and virtual reality team at Unity for about 6 years. I think that is also the one that is probably the most polarizing and that people tend to think of as the least likely to scale today. So here's how we describe it internally at Unity. And you see we hedge our bets a little bit, mostly everything. It is always real time. And what I mean by that is this. We are entering into a really cool new era of human-computer interaction. We started off with mainframes, then we moved to human-readable programming. That was actually a really big deal. Then we moved to computers on the desktop instead of in a big room far away from you. Then we moved to connected computers, the rise of the internet, the rise of portable computing, and now what we have in this era is contextual computing. Computers that understand where you are, they know what you say, they know what your face looks like, they know your voices, they know where you move, they know where you go, they're able to make sense of the world around them. We'll talk briefly about things like chat GTP later, but that's even a next evolution from just branching narrative, kind of dumb smart assistants, to computers you can have a real conversation with. All right, I kind of covered this now, but in the context of what we do at Unity, which is create very complicated and robust tools and services to enable people to easily make this class of technology. We're moving from 2D to 3D, static to interactive, isolated to present. We call it presence. This is a very common term in virtual reality, but really just means social, in real time. Sort of like, the Star Wars, here we are sitting in the same room, Zoom on steroids. And then moving from predicted technology to actual simulations that you can see and interact with. So, as I mentioned earlier, we started off in games. We're actually still very popular in games. I think over 70% of all mobile games are still made with Unity. Any Call of Duty fans in the audience? Woo! All right, awesome. Okay. Pokemon Go, also a really big one. But we've taken the technology that we have which is a combination of real-time rendering, great interactivity, great animation, great physics engine, a lot of stuff that you wouldn't necessarily think about. And we're applying that now to things like point of sale, retail, architecture, and digital trial. All right, I'm going to show you a video quickly. There's one right here, but actually I'll talk over it. So this is our Stockholm team. Every year they set the bar creating a new demo for us, and this is the one that they did last year. I just want to make it clear, this is an off-the-shelf game engine that you can download for free today, and this is what you can see in a video game. So it's not a custom engine. This is not necessarily like super high-end processing power, but we were able to kind of push the envelope about what you could do in real time with humans. We're not quite at Marvel level because, again, you could actually move the camera around, you can stop, you can go back and forth. We could rig this character and turn it into a game, so it has to be rendered frame by frame. But this is the quality and the bar that we're trying to reach today. So I've got this take, got this slightly creepy lady, and then we were applying it to real things that exist today, like sports. Oh, okay, it's a little loud here. But this is actually 2 real MMA boxers that we stuck in a volumetric capture. Talk a little bit more about that later too. And you can actually see the entire fight. You can change the camera angles, you can rewind, you can play it again. The thing I think is so cool about this is there are many different ways to interact with sports today, with like IPs today. You can go to a conference, you can go to a con, you can go to a theme park. But this actually enables you to always be the kind of owner of the things that you see, that you are the director, you are the one who's able to see it. And if you're actually creating content for your users, rather than just have a traditional linear narrative, give them something in a box that they feel like they can't interact with and can't do anything with, it's just kind of highly disposable. Like notoriously, sports is something that people don't watch after the fact. It's real time or nothing. This enables a new class of interaction for that. And we use this technology all across the board. So for example, with Audi, we created they created a very high definition, highly realistic, I've been in the headset here, where you can actually see the car composite. eBay TrueView, we allow people to actually just quickly scan their assets and their inventory and put it online. And then Dyson with their Infinite Store. I will talk about that one a little bit more in detail in a little bit. Okay, so I talked a little bit about sports, entertainment, games. Inside Unity, we tend to have a sliding scale about how we think about this. So the first is the usefulness of the B2B. This tends to be things like AI and simulation, logistics, manufacturing, and then we have the other side of it, which is more B2C, and that will be live entertainment, movies, sports, retail, malls, concerts, events. The reason I mention all this really is just in case you hadn't thought about the metaverse and these things. These are the classes of examples that we see daily and that we work with our partners on in our Accelerate Solutions team, and then the other times they just make it and they come to us and show us what they made. All right, so let's talk a little bit about examples of the future of storytelling. This is Pharos AR. This is a app that we made a couple of years ago with Childish Gambino, Donald Glover. The cool thing about this one, there's a couple of cool things. First, this was his imagination. We built a world that he wanted to be in, that he designed, that was part of his musical persona, Childish Gambino world. And it was AR, also virtual reality. It was an app you could download. Unfortunately, it's not available anymore, I just checked. But it was also multiplayer and mobile AR, which if you've ever done that, any AR developers in the room? Mobile AR? Oh, cool, yeah, okay. So you know that mobile multiplayer AR is extremely difficult.
Yes!
Yes.
Yes!
Yes, it is. Right. So I know it sounds like it should be a solved problem. It's completely unsolved. This was a really cool example. And this, I think, I'll talk about this a little bit more with the humans too. It's a great example of having a brand and then being able to expand it out into a world. Some brands are great about this. Balenciaga is a good example. Gucci has done this as well. But obviously when it comes to the digital world, you can do whatever you want and create an artistic expression of whatever you want. We also work with Lululemon. Lululemon is cool because they, well, I mean, I'm a little biased. I have like probably like 20 different Lululemon articles of clothing, but they pioneered ways of getting people to think about their brand outside of just retail. So for example, they were the first to have yoga classes in their stores, so people would go in and be surrounded by the whole vibe of Lululemon and then go, buy the yoga clothes. They wanted to create an app that would kind of cover the ethos of Lululemon as a place for health, a place for mindfulness, a place for presence. And so they actually worked with our internal studio to create an experience that would monitor your heart rate. And this is a virtual reality experience that they had in select locations. And the experience would change as your heart rate changed. Really cool biometrics is kind of unusual in a lot of these experiences. So it's a combination of a really cool brand, a really cool technology, a really cool point of sale, and biometrics. Okay, so there's a couple examples of brands. So now let's talk a little bit about the future of work. This is our object capture studio, by the way, that we have. So you can place objects or people inside of this. It does a full scan, and then out comes volumetric capture. And that was used for a client that I cannot name. It's a large pharmaceutical company that rhymes with like mean beans. And they use our technology to digitize their inventory. This is useful in a couple of different ways. First, it's useful for logistics. Second, logistics, stocking, and then actually like doing mock-ups of a store, seeing the throughput, so all on the logistics side. How will the customer interact with the products? How will the customer go through the store? But it's also useful on the second side because it allows them to take the same asset and use it all the way across the board. You can use it for logistics, you can use it for simulation and AI, and then you can actually just stick it on your website and have a 3D object. 3D isn't necessarily useful for every point of sale, by the way. I appreciate that. Sometimes a 2D image will do fine. The cool thing is you just scan it one time, and then you can actually just generate images, ultra high fidelity, high quality, lit correctly. So it does have, the object is 3D, the output may not necessarily be 3D. Either way, you save yourself a lot of time and money. All right, so yeah, related to this, when we think about how people want to use our technology, we try to be as holistic as possible. So this covers a couple of different things. I mentioned the synthetic photography, of course, but inventory management, Salesforce integration, all of the basic stuff around how you actually need to run your business, this is top of mind for us. And I know that sounds like it's a far cry from games, and it is, but as people are using our technology, we have to make sure that we can not only help them bring in their assets, or scan their people, or scan their spaces, or scan their factories, but then be able to actually take it all the way through their own internal CMSs, inventory, infrastructure, and be able to actually output something useful. When it comes to computers, honestly, there's two ways of doing it. You can do it once, you can do it messily and you'll never do it again, or you can do it right the first time and actually come up with a smooth, cleaned up system that works in the long term. Vancouver International Airport. This has been, I think, one of our more fruitful collaborations. I really like this one. It started off as a proof of concept and it's grown over time. So we started with simulation around traffic management for pickup and drop off. And now we evolved that to throughput within the airport. And now we have a really, I wish we had the video, we don't right now, a really great looking, super realistic simulation that can be used for everything from everything I just mentioned around throughput, but they're now using it just to simulate plane movement going in and out of gates. So that's cool because it's the same app, it's the same assets that we're reusing. We don't have to redo it every time. And we keep just growing the features on top of it and adding more real-time information to it. All right, I have one more for you. The future of the client relationship. And this is a little bit of an extension of retail. The Dyson store we saw in an earlier slide. I think this one is really cool. I read an article maybe about a month ago now that described Walmart as an algorithm, which I thought was really interesting. Basically, they were saying that Walmart had successfully figured out where to be in a physical location, what size the store needed to be, what needed to be in it, and what point you need, or at what price point you needed to sell it, in order to build an incredibly successful, sustainable business. But at the end of the day, the business was successful because the algorithm was right. I know that sounds a little high metaphor, but I really liked it because then they said, Amazon then next took that and exploded out the location aspect, right? The everything store. So Amazon was able to say, we can access everything. The algorithm is similar to what we have for Walmart, but now we have vastly expanded the amount of inventory we have and how many people we can serve because we've gotten rid of the physical location. I think stores like this, while they're in their concept phase now, are that next evolution because the store can be anywhere as well. So it's not just me having to go to a website, having to guess, having to send something and return it, but actually having the store wherever you are, having highly realistic physical objects that allow people to make better decisions. I think that is that one next little nugget in the algorithm that we will see continue to expand over the next decade as AR glasses come online, virtual reality becomes more common, projection mapping becomes more common, and so on. Digital humans. This is also interesting. When I talked about Donald Glover and Pharos earlier, I talked a little bit about how he was able to create his own world that identified with his brand and with Childish Gambino. This is also something that is really interesting for brands. Brands have always used people as the face of the brand, brand ambassadors, people that you pay to go and represent your brand. But when you have hyper-realistic humans, you can actually choose who you want your ambassador to be. It doesn't just have to be an animated tiger. You can actually go and think, who do I want this person to be? This is Suwa, very popular in Korea. And you can see here that she does brand partnerships with, this is, for example, Lucky's. She has over 34,000 followers on Twitter. There are virtual humans that have 10x that, by the way. But this is just a great example of a digital persona that is being used to represent what the brand wants to expose itself to the world at in a very, very human way. All right, when you talk about, when you talk about digital humans, of course, then that comes into AI and AGI, and are the robots going to kill us all? I don't think so, by the way. I'm not really worried about that very much. What I am interested in, and what we're interested in at Unity, is how we can use AI for a couple of things. To make better content, to help make those amazing humans. A quick side note, just to brag before I show you this video. We have Ziva Face Trainer. It's a face capture and then real human output technology that you saw in some of these videos. Normally it would cost something like $250,000 to capture a high quality human and then terabytes of data in order to make it work. You've seen this in like every Marvel movie, every high-end VFX movie now for the last decade or so. With Ziva, it costs $1,800 and it is a fraction of the data. So this is the type of technology, this is how we're using AI today. But we also want to use it for things like coding. We also wanted to use it so that people can go in and just speak a world. So this is a little teaser trailer that we came out with at GDC, talking about what we think we can do with AI. Stay tuned, we will be showing off more than just that over the next few months. I don't have too much time left. We did go ahead and ask AI what it thinks of the metaverse, and I think we did cover some of it today. Realistic avatars, intelligent NPCs, that's non-player characters in a game, for example, content generation, safety and moderation, which we didn't even really touch on. But I just wanted to end with the final thoughts here about everything that we covered today. I know, A, it was a lot. B, some of it is super nascent. I'm happy to talk about the practical reality if you see me walking around the stage, or you can just email me. And finally, some of it doesn't feel like it quite matches up maybe to your version of the metaverse. Regardless, this is how we're thinking about it at the world's largest, most widely used real-time 3D engine company. So happy to chat more about how you can actually use this with your brand, and keep these in mind as you go. All right, I have no time left, so very quickly, take a screenshot of the QR code, and we love to stay in touch. Thank you very much.